Improve it. Improve it.
Podcast.
Hello, my beautiful Improve It peeps. Welcome to the show. I am Erin Deal. If you are new here, welcome. If you are an Improve It peep, so glad you're back. If you press play, you have just walked into the best day of your life. The Improve It podcast is a podcast from the company I founded, Improve It. We use improv comedy to train professionals on soft skills. And my main mission in life is to help people reach their highest consciousness through play. So I'm thrilled to have you, giving you a quick backstory on the show, but also something you should know if you're new is that every month on the show, we have an intention. And this month, we are talking all about ease. We're talking about flow, and sometimes ease means navigating curveballs and obstacles that life throws at us with grace. Now, as I mentioned, we use improv comedy to train people on soft skills here. And as an improviser, when I'm on stage with a team and we're performing really well, we call this group mind. All of the lack mentality has gone out the window. We've stopped pushing and trying to make the scene work, and we've started to just allow the scene to take place by being really involved and present in the play. So that's what ease is as an improviser. But what about ease when it comes to our careers? What if we embraced all of the twists and turns of our careers with ease? What if we allowed things to happen versus force? What if we allow our career setbacks to be some of our greatest wins, and we allow our curves to take shape an entire new form? I am so excited to chat with our guest today, Ashely Menzies Babatunde. Ashely is a lawyer, a storyteller, a founder, and a DEIB strategist, passionate about work at the intersection of humanity and career. She is the host, creator, and producer of No Straight Path, a podcast aimed at exploring the human stories behind success. Now, as an LA native with Black American and Guyanese roots, Ashely believes in the power of storytelling because it allows people to connect with one another, inspire each other, and build empathy, which we talk a lot about on this show. Ashely graduated from Harvard Law School and received her bachelor's in political science from Stanford University. She enjoys a good memoir, quality time with her husband and loved ones, and embracing her Guyanese culture through soca dance. Now, if you clicked play on the show, it's because you want to navigate career twists and turns with our word ease. You want to learn how to do this by helping the people you lead, or you have a different path that you want to forge ahead and you are sick of the conventional ways society tells you to get there. If this sounds like you, grab a pen and paper because Ashely is giving us all the answers and more. Get ready. Let's improve it with the one, the only Ashely Menzies Babatunde. Ashely, welcome to the Improve It podcast. I am so excited to chat with you. You're such a lovely human.
Oh, thank you so much, Erin. Thank you for having me. I know that you're a lovely human too. I'm finally excited to meet you. I was going to say in person, but virtually in person.
It feels like it. It feels like it. And I feel like this is a long time coming. And I want to start off the show. Every month we have an intention for our audience. This month, our intention is ease. So keeping that in mind, what is an intention you want to set for our conversation today? It could be one word. It could be two words.
I was going to say presence. Yeah, because I think that's just where I am in general. Like I really want to be present in this conversation. I think it will be extremely easy. I think we're going to have a great conversation. It'll be very memorable. But it's like, this is the best part of my day. Like this hour that we're taking to chat, and connect. I love doing this kind of work. And so I just really want to be present in this moment.
I am so here for that. I have a bracelet. Actually, I need to take it off because it dangles. I hear it on my audio. It says, be here now. And I love that. I love presence as our intention. We're going to take that with us. So let me ask you about ease. When you hear the word ease, what comes to mind for you?
Oh, something I've been working towards for a very long time and something that I feel like I've been able to achieve to a certain extent. I will say this. I am in a period of embracing ease right now. In the last couple of months, I have not been. We're preparing for our first child. And so the to-do list was very long, lots of different things to do. And the overachiever, who I feel like I've transitioned from overachiever to achiever, that's what I'm trying to get the over out, had to take a step back and think about this time. I had to remove things off of my plate because I will never get this time back where I'm preparing for my first child with the husband that I love, who I've wanted to have a child with, since I met him in law school. Not at that time. It's like, but one day, it's like, we're going to.
I get that.
I was like, you are going to be the father of my child, sir. You seem great. And so now we're in this season. And so I really want to take it in. And so I'm trying to be really intentional about introducing ease, about doing the things I love, about being excited about this time and not stressed.
Oh, I love that for you. And you're absolutely right. You can't get that time back. You really can't. And it is a season of a lot of to-dos, but there's also just so much excitement and so much momentum. And I also think this is cool because this is the last time you and your husband will be a party of two.
Yeah. Yep.
Somebody told me this before I went into the hospital. My son is a miracle baby. I talk about that a lot on the show. So he was like a long time coming. Lots of science, lots of prayers, lots of, asks. And somebody told me right before you go into the hospital to take a picture of you and your husband, because that will be the last picture where it's just the two of you on this earth together. I mean, you'll go on vacations and have pictures of the two of you, but that picture itself will be that last memory of the two of you as a family of two.
Oh, wow. I'm going to do that. I love that.
Yeah, I love that for you too. Oh, I'm loving the season of ease for you. Third trimester, right? We're very close. When is your due date?
Yeah, August 3rd. So I'm 31 weeks.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you had a baby shower yet?
Just had it this past weekend. Family and friends, everyone flew out to LA. It was so much fun. Hosted it in our backyard. My cousin, I'm an only child, but who's essentially my sister, put everything together. It was just incredible. It was so nice.
Oh, I love that. I remember mine was around like 32 weeks. And then it was after the shower. And maybe you're feeling this way, maybe you're not. But I just thought he was supposed to come now. I was like, oh, it's now I'm ready. So those last 8 weeks were really hard for me. But I also just, again, that season of ease and embracing that word, I feel like for you is so apparent, and I can feel it. You're so calm. You're like, let me do this. I'm here for it. I'm here for you. You're welcome. Okay. So I just adore you. You're a podcast host, you're still an attorney, right? You still practice attorney?
Yeah, I still have my active license. I'm not practicing right now, but we might return. You never know.
Okay. But you now have a new role as Global Diversity and Inclusion Manager. And your show that you host is called No Straight Path. How would you describe the path from law school, attorney, to this new journey that you're on? Because there isn't a straight path, but I'd love to hear how you got to this point.
Yeah. So it actually goes back to my childhood. I always say that I was this very focused and intense overachiever, very much a nature thing, not a nurture. My parents were supportive of really whatever I wanted to do, unless it wasn't too, out there. And so at an early age, I wanted to be a lawyer. I wrote down in a letter to myself at the age of 10 years old that I wanted to be a lawyer, that I wanted to go to Stanford, that I wanted to go to Harvard or USC, and that I loved shopping and a few other things, which I still love. And I was able to do all of those things. And for much of my life, I thought there was this linear path because I worked really hard to get to all of those steps and was just very focused and had such a supportive family. So I was in a space where I could do that. And for the first time, it was right before I became a lawyer. It was a bar exam. I failed the exam. And that's when things just really changed for me and my perspective shifted. And I realized, okay, there isn't necessarily a linear path, or I put in all the hard work and it didn't turn out the way that I thought it would turn out. And I tried again. So I'd failed twice. I lost my job, and it was my first big professional failure. And I hadn't really even started my legal career, but it did a lot of things for me. And I was fortunate to kind of dig deep and pass the exam, go off to practice law for nearly 5 years, have a really amazing career at that. And during that time, though, there was something calling me. And it was small iterations, but I still journal, but I started my journal while I was in legal practice or a little bit before. And there was something in there that said, I like the people, I like this particular work, but I'm missing human connection. It's a little too transactional for me. I don't know if I can get into this practice. I don't know if I need to do something else, but I'm just going to write it down and see what happens. Fast forward, so it's a little bit of story to go through all the.
I love it. Okay. I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Okay. So fast forward, and I realized that I didn't know exactly what I was going to do, but I knew it was going to be in the people space. It's like, okay, there's something here. I was doing a lot of DEI work at my firm. I was doing a lot of mentoring and coaching. People were coming to me. I was able to find the practice group that I liked. I was able to kind of find some joy and figure out what worked for me. And so people noticed that. And so I started to talk to a lot of associates. So I wrote that down. And that was one part of the bucket, knowing that perhaps one day I'm going to make a transition. And what helped me actually take the leap of faith was my podcast. I put that out during legal practice as a way to honor my mom. So during the pandemic, fortunately, my mom got sick, stage 4 leiomyosarcoma. It's a very rare cancer. And so we didn't have much time. And so what we did together is we worked on the podcast. And it was like this really beautiful project to help me. Yeah, it was really a grief project or a passion project. You can say that they were both, but it was a thing that gave us hope in that moment. It was about the future. It was about pursuing my dreams. And it was all actually based on the bar failure, or that was what inspired it. And it was about, how do we center our humanity? How do we talk about these stories? Because when I failed the exam, I knew one day I'm going to tell my story. And so I did, and I put out a blog post, and that kind of resonated with people. And then I decided, okay, maybe I need to do a podcast. My mom was like, okay, you should do this podcast. She knew what podcast was. She's like, whatever you want to do, very supportive. I'm an only child. And so I would tell her all my ideas. And that was like that was our thing. That was our thing. And so, when she passed away, I went into the grief period, the mode, taking care of everything, figuring out work. And a year later, I thought, okay, what can I do with my grief? How can I honor her in a positive way? Because she was extremely positive. Like, I had to explain toxic positivity to this woman. And she's like, what could be toxic about positivity? Like,
I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
And so I knew it had to be something I loved. And so I put the podcast out. 3 weeks later, HubSpot, the podcast network, they reached out to me. They asked me to join their network. I did it for about 6 months while practicing law. It became too much. I talked to my firm. I pitched a sabbatical. They said yes. I took a year off. I did the podcast. I started a business. And then from there, I got to do that inner work and realized, okay, let me go back to my journal. I got to get into the people space. So let me see if I can transition into professional development, into DEI work, into whatever that may be. And fortunately, After 8 months probably of applying, I was able to land a role that I really, really love and still do the podcast.
Oh my gosh. All of this is beautiful. I'm so grateful you shared that journey. People can't see this. We don't put the actual like video online. But I literally have tears in my eyes because it's just so beautiful that you are able to honor your mom and her spirit and to have her be a part of the birth of this beautiful thing that you're giving the world. And I know she's listening today, so we're just going to give it, what's her name?
Belinda.
Belinda, we're giving you some love today and just saying thank you for guiding Ashely to this place because it is so beautiful. And you're such an inspiration to so many people listening who feel like a little stuck right where they are, that there is room for your own path and for your wants in your career if you ask. And if you allow yourself to first get still to journal and to understand what those things might be. And then the second part, what I really heard you say was you asked for that sabbatical so you could have that time to grieve, to do the podcast. The fact that HubSpot came to you is so amazing. Truly, I'm going to tell you straight up. When they started doing the HubSpot network, I was like, I want in. And we didn't get in, and that's okay. We have our own path. And I realize sometimes when you ask and you don't receive, there's a reason, right? And so you asked and received and are such a living testament to the fact that there is no straight path. So I love everything that you're saying. So if you could, and let me tell you this, I did listen to your show, and I listened to the first one you did of this year, I believe it was. And you mentioned that your intention is becoming this year. You're becoming. Was that this year? Was that this year that you released that episode?
Yeah, I believe so. I'm always becoming, so it works. It works.
It works. You referenced Michelle Obama, who I'm a huge fan of, but also we always have a theme and an intention for our show every month. And so one of our themes from previous months was becoming. And I think that is so cool that is an intention for you because you are becoming a new version of yourself. And part of becoming a parent is understanding and becoming this new version and identifying with this new identity. So you're becoming so many things as you entered this new path in your career. If you know how Taylor Swift has her eras, if you were to say the name of this era for you, would it be becoming, or what would the name of this era be?
You know, that's such a fascinating question because I was just talking about this with a friend. And I said, you know what? I'm tired of talking about my career. I'm entering the Oprah era.
Yes. Yes. Ashely, I knew we were meant to be friends for a reason. Yes. Expand on that. Expand on that.
You know, and not that I'm tired. I'm happy and I love the work that I do, and I do a lot of mentoring, and anyone that knows me, if they're reaching out, I will take the call and help them with their career steps. A lot of prospective law students. I talk to one at least every week, someone who's failed the bar exam, someone who needs more work-life balance or work-life integration. I am happy to share people who want to make a career pivot. I've been able to live in that space, and I have things to say about it. And so I feel grateful that I can share, and I think it is a part of my purpose. But I'm in a season and in a space that I think is a little bit more reflective of my mom too, because she did this work through her Bible study. And it's one where I want to talk about the things that really make life worth living. So is that love? Probably. Relationships, grief, loss, our humanity in general. And there's an intersection because I want to embrace our humanity in the workplace. That's something I would say that's like my mission statement from a professional perspective. But I really love how I feel when I am talking about things and in conversation about things that are not tied to capitalism or business incentives. I think that's where I really come alive. And so I don't know what that means for the next chapter. I'm actually writing my next episode and kind of talking about that a little bit, about what that might mean for the podcast, what it might look like. But I feel like I'm entering my Oprah era. I have some things to say about just being a human that I really want to share, and I'm excited about it.
I love that. Okay, so truth. I have my vision board behind my computer. This is my little makeshift podcast studio in my home. And on my vision board, I'm looking at Oprah. Like literally behind the camera is Oprah, because she's been a guiding force in my life forever. But I also just really love that what she is here to teach is life lessons. And I love that it's beyond commerce. It's beyond revenue. It's beyond the ties that make business. It's the humanness of it all, which I really appreciate and love so much. You mentioned, and you said this in the episode I listened to, that you took a sabbatical and you wanted to normalize breaks in content creation. And I want to talk to you about that, because when we talk about career curves and honoring our inner self, talk to me about the importance of that sabbatical and taking breaks and becoming this new version of you.
Yeah. And I think you mentioned it earlier. It's about being still. It's about being able to pay attention to yourself. You actually know exactly what you want to do, but there's all of this noise outside. There's all these responsibilities. There's all of this busyness that, a lot of the time we don't have control over. So I don't want to minimize that. And I think I was very privileged to be able to have the opportunity to take a sabbatical. I always say that. I was a practicing lawyer. I had savings. I had, because it was unpaid. I had at the time financial support from my husband. So I understand the privilege. And so what I think is important, that even if you don't have that privilege, is that you do have 10 to 15 minutes a day to think, to journal, to ask yourself certain questions. And these are questions that I just never asked myself. I was always on the treadmill trying to continue to achieve. There was always so much to do. And so you can kind of look up one day and say, am I living in alignment with myself? Am I living in alignment with my purpose? Do I even want this? Is this the journey I want to take, or do I want to pivot? And so it gave me that time to go back to that journal entry that I mentioned previously, where it said, it was a quick thing, like, I need more human interaction. I'm just writing this down. I'm not exactly sure what this means, but I went back to that. And then I went back to another journal entry. And then you start to see the patterns in your own life. You may forget it, but it can really show up. I always say it's like the lawyer in me, the evidentiary record of your thoughts and what you really want. And I think the other piece of that too is it can give you time to kind of ask those questions of your loved ones. Ask those questions of the people who really, really know you, who know your authentic self. Because my husband, he said to me, and this was quite early on in my legal practice, maybe 3 years in, he said, have you ever thought about DEI work? And I said, no, like I'm going to be, I didn't say partner, but I said, no, I don't think that's going to be for me. I'm going to just find the legal practice that's right for me. I just haven't found the right place, within the legal industry. And fast forward years later, and that's the job I'm really enjoying right now. And so I think that taking that time helps you figure out what you really want to do, who you are. And also, it's good to just sleep. If you're someone who's just, if you've just been running around, just really tired, because then you get to know there's like also just a health perspective. You get to know your body. You get to know your sleep time, your wake time, what food fuels you. You are become less dependent or reliant even on, like, it sounds bad, but other substances or things that can make you kind of escape. Like a lot of lawyers have drinking problems. Like a glass of wine at the end of the day after work every day is probably not what I needed to be doing. When I started my sabbatical, like I did not do that. I was more of a social drinker, but that became a thing where it was like, oh, have my glass of wine every night with dinner. So these little things that you notice, and I was able to just kind of achieve a healthier lifestyle as well.
So great. So great. We talk about that so much on this show. And I did a soul sabbatical last year. It was just a week. Okay. It wasn't anything wild. But at our company, if you've been here 7 years, you get a month paid sabbatical. We've been in business 10 years. And this is only for, our W-2 team. And so that's a smaller team. We have a ton of contractors that improve it. We call them our improv professionals. But Jenna on my team is taking a month paid sabbatical this November. I'm jealous because I took a 3-month mat leave, but I'm like, that wasn't vacation, So I know what the week of a soul sabbatical did for me mentally, physically, emotionally. And I feel like when I got in touch with myself, when I took a nap on this soul sabbatical, it was like I achieved a goal. Like I was like clapping for myself that I napped because I've resisted rest for so long. So the fact that you have really allowed yourself to take breaks from a content creator perspective, we've had a show on this show, or we've had an episode every week of this show for 4 years. And I do batch them. So I don't, they're not like, they're pre-recorded sometimes. And sometimes I don't even, the time that the show comes out, it's been like a month or two since I've had that conversation. However, it's still work. And so I love that you are giving this perspective from not only the seat that you're in, but where you're willing to go. And the disassociation that you are aware of is so beautiful, because I did the same thing, especially during the pandemic. It wasn't a glass of wine. It was a dirty martini. Okay. Every night, every night.
Yeah.
And you have to create you have to step outside of the norm to create the new normal. And so I love that you've witnessed this. Now, I know people listening to the show, we call our audience the Improve It Peeps. They're in different phases of their careers. But if somebody was having what you call a career curve, how can you help them normalize this pivot for themselves? Because sometimes people have problems with change, or they have a mindset of, okay, I should be on this path. And if I deviate from this path and go the road less traveled, it's scary. How would you help them normalize what they're about to do?
I feel like if they're making a transition, then they want to do it. And so the tension and the dissonance is probably coming from societal expectations, from familial expectations, from financial pressures, which are real. And so I would say for the financial pressures part, that's where you figure out a plan and you budget and things of that nature. But just from the expectations, it's like you've got to go back and check in with yourself. And I think that's so hard in the beginning. I think you get to a point, and you've probably gotten to a point like me, where it's now you do things and it's just like second nature. It might be a little different to the rest of the world, but it's like, who you are, you're going, your purpose, and it becomes a muscle that you practice. But in the beginning, when you're still figuring that out and you're making this big change and it isn't really aligned with what you've done in the past, it is scary. What are people going to think? What if I fail? All these different things go through your head. But think about the power of regret. I think it was Daniel Pink, his book, he talks about that. And think about, if I don't take this leap of faith, if I don't make this transition, how will I feel? And is it a regret that I would live with, that I want to live with? And that's actually what I did with the podcast, because I actually said no to the podcast network deal initially, because I just didn't think I could balance it with my legal practice. It's a very intense job. And so I knew it was going to be really tough. And then I asked myself that question. I knew what my mom would say. She said, go for it. You'll figure it out. And I'm so glad I did. And it led me down this really beautiful journey. And I just really would encourage whoever is in that position to think about the alternative world. What if you didn't do it? Would it really feel challenging for you? And if so, go for it. You can always pivot back. Life is ever changing. It's not constant. You have choice, especially in this generation and this time that we have now. We have more choice. And so it's good to be able to take advantage of it if you can.
I love it so much. I have to tell you, so I built Improve It 10 years ago. And it was almost like this calling that I felt super called to do. And I had the corporate job. I was working and I was doing something I never thought I would do. Actually, I was doing business development at a recruiting firm. Never thought that was what I would do. Since I was 13, Ashely, you'll appreciate this. I wanted to be Oprah. Like literally, that was my life's goal.
Oh,
I love her so much. So long story long, Improve It became kind of like my Oprah, right? This was the thing I was supposed to do. This was the talk show. This was the platform. This was how I was going to help serve the world. And I literally remember somebody asking me this early on. Why did you do it? Because it is such a deviation from the norm. I had to figure out my own insurance. I had to put food in my own belly. I had to figure out how to get a paycheck to create all the things that I wanted to do. And I remember answering that question with, if I didn't do it, it would have been the greatest regret of my life. And so I feel like anybody listening today who feels a call to do something outside of what their scope might have looked like or the original vision that they set out for yourself. So example, going back to your childhood journal entry of you did the things that you said you were going to do. It's okay to have curves. It's okay to have bends. It's okay to have forks in the road and to try a different path for a little bit. And I think knowing that if you didn't do it, it would be such a regret is such a really great way to examine should you do it or not.
yeah. And I love your story. Thank you for sharing that. Because I know a little bit about it, but the regret part, yeah, it's so true. And you feel this calling. The other thing is that all the time that you spent, like as an example, the business development career that you built out that you never thought that you would have done, I'm sure you can look back at that career and see how it's applicable to your career now and to the work that you're doing. Like I needed to be a lawyer. I needed to fail. I needed to overcome that. I needed everything that I've done. I needed to do it to lead me to the place where I'm at now. And so that's something else too. When people are making a transition that they might have doubts about, they think that time is this wasted time. It's like, I've worked so hard to get here. If I make this transition, it'll all be for nothing, but that's actually not true. And so I think that you realize it often in retrospect, but my hope is that people at least can know that lesson is coming. Even if you don't feel it, and even if you don't understand it, know that all that past work that you've done is going to help you in the transition that you're making.
1,000%. It's so funny. I can literally look back at the puzzle pieces that are my life, and they were all, each individual little piece adds up to the puzzle where I am today. Each job, each thing that I was guided to do has helped me in this seat at Improve It, hands down. So that is so true. I want to flip this a little bit because I really like that you have this mindfulness practice, bringing us back to your intention of presence. You seem to be in this really great place. You seem to be living in this ease era, right? This Oprah era / Oprah era. Do you have a mindfulness practice that you go to every day? Is there something that you do, like a morning routine or something that you could share with our peeps that could guide them to be in a more mindful place?
Yes, I do. So I love story. When I go back to personal story, I'm always happy. And so I always try to introduce that into my day at some point. I usually like to start my morning with some type of story. So it's usually a podcast. I love this podcast called Meditative Story or even the Modern Love Stories. And they're just usually really interesting, deep stories about life. If I can't get that in, and I usually do, I'll read a book. There's this book I'm reading that it has just very short essays. So it literally will take like 10 minutes, which is nice. But I'm not sure if you're familiar with the Moth series.
Oh, yes.
Yes.
When you said story, that's what I thought.
Okay. Yes. So I just got their, I think it's the most recent book. And I can't remember the name, but it's a green cover, but it's really good. I've read a few essays in that. And it just always brings me so much peace. It always leaves me with an intention or a mindset of what's actually important before you get into that busyness of the day, you get into the stress of the day. And so other things didn't work for me. I'll be honest with you, trying the actual meditation or trying just yoga or some of the things. I'm from LA. So like this was something we were doing in elementary school. It was hilarious. We had yoga classes in elementary school because I'm from Los Angeles. And
I love it. And granola, probably like kale in the cafeteria.
Yeah.
Probably, I get it. Okay. Yeah.
And I remember in meditation practice, all those things that I know are so good for you and the research says it's good for you. And then, coming from a strong spiritual background for my family, my mom would read her like Bible devotionals in the morning, like all these different things. And I realized for me, it was, I can do all this stuff, but it's got to be connected to story. And so once I found that, I guess life hack, I know you like life hacks, that hack for myself, became a really good morning routine for me. And so I really try hard not to deviate from it because it just makes me a like happier, healthier human being. And then I also save articles. I might not be able to read. I go through the New York Times every morning and I look at all the different things that's going on in the world, but I go to the personal profiles. So they suggested articles for the New York Times for me every day. It's like a well-being article, a personal profile, something like that. And then I send it to myself. And then I try to make sure that I get to it that day or at least this week.
I love that. That is a very different answer than what I've heard because a lot of people say the meditation, they say the walking, the exercising, but story, like what a beautiful way to start your day, engrossed in some type of beautiful, tangible outcome or inspirational moment. I'm going to try that, Ashely, honestly. I love the Moth series. I'm super huge fan of that, but I love that answer. So, okay. This is one last question. If you had to hold one of our listeners' hands today, somebody who's struggling with their career path, and you could give them an affirmation to say daily to improve themselves, pun intended, but also have more presence in their life, what would that affirmation be?
That's a good question. I'm going to take a moment to think about it because I don't want it to be cliche. I want it to be novel.
You want it to be a story.
Yeah.
I get it.
Ooh, can I read you something?
I would love that. Yes.
Okay. It's because it's a bit of a longer affirmation. But it is something I take with me that I recently posted on my podcast, Instagram, and I feel like it's the thing that really helps me. So the older I get, the more I realize experience is the best teacher. It's the path to peace and wisdom. You can't intellectualize your way to it. You can't sprint your way to it. You can't self-help book your way to it. You just have to live. Give your younger and current self grace. It will all work out.
Oh, so good. And you wrote that.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Experience is the best teacher. It really is. Because you can read all the self-help books you want, but it's not a lived experience. So
yeah, things just click. It's like you can know something. And this is what we deal with in our life, I think, all the time. Like a lot of us, we do the research. We know what it says. We intellectually understand something and know we should do X, Y, and Z, but are we living it? And sometimes you need something in life to shake you up to make you live it. Like it's very interesting. Sometimes people say to me, and they may have said to you, that was so brave of you to make that transition, to start your company, to do X, Y, and Z. But it's like, it was brave, but it was also something that was just inside you. You just had to do it. Perhaps you didn't feel it was brave. I don't think what I was doing was necessarily brave. I was just doing work I was called to do, that I'm called to do. And you can only really understand that after living it.
So true. Oh my God. I love that, Ashely. We're going to end there because I want everyone listening to re-listen to that quote, hit rewind, go back to that one more time, and go to her Instagram. You can find it on your Instagram, right? For the show, The No Straight Path. Okay.
Yeah.
We're going to put all of that in the show notes. Tell everybody where they can find you, how they can listen to your show, all the things.
Yeah. So definitely you can connect with me on Instagram. My personal is Miss Menzies, MS_Menzies, MENZIES. And then my No Straight Path Instagram, where I try to put more of my inspirational content, is no_straight_path. I'm also on LinkedIn, Ashely Menzies Babatunde, and I'm happy to connect.
Oh, I love it. Well, I'm so glad we are connected now. Your presence was so felt here today, and I'm so grateful for the work you're doing. Congratulations on this beautiful bundle of joy that you are bringing to life. And I know we'll have you back on the show at some point to hear how motherhood is going.
Thank you so much, Erin. This has been so fun. I just love your spirit and energy as well, and I appreciate the encouragement and well wishes.
Improve it, peeps. Oh my gosh. Ashely is the real deal. I could have talked to her forever. It was such an easy conversation. See what I did there? And I felt her presence throughout the entire conversation. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to do what Ashely mentioned and get really clear on what it is that you want in your career. Sit with that. And if there is something calling you that you don't go and do, and if you don't go and do that, it will be the greatest regret of your life, I want you to pause this show, get out your notes section of your phone, and I want you, my friend, to take a few moments to answer what would happen if you didn't go the career curve that you're thinking about. What would happen if you stayed stagnant? Take 2 minutes to journal that. And then I want you to take 2 minutes to journal what would happen if you took the career curve, if you went the path less traveled. What would happen? My friends, I am so happy that you clicked play on today's show. I am so grateful for Ashely's friendship. I can't wait to hear how motherhood is going for her. If you like today's show, please share it on social media, post it so friends can hear it, and please consider leaving us a 5-star iTunes review, because this, my friends, is how people like Ashely come on our show. When they know that you are here to listen and learn, they want to talk to you. Oh, as you know, I want you to keep failing, keep improving, because this world needs that very special it that only you can bring. I'll see you next time.